All right, I am Mitch Pegg. I am the director of the Day Reporting Center.
Kimberly Ernest, Vice President of Recovery Programming in Lebanon.
Roy Smith, founder of Pennsylvania Counseling Services.
And Ruthie Davis, President Chief Operating Officer.
All right. So, thank you very much for coming to the graduation. It was a very nice time for everyone involved, and we had a good turnout. And we're hoping to build upon those successes. And so to start off today, we would like to highlight some of the successes of the DRC up to this point. We recently were able to, we have hung around the 40 mark for our census for a little while, and we have officially achieved 40 clients that are active in our program. 4 of those clients are currently receiving a higher level of care in a rehabilitation center or something of the sort, and they will return once they are finished. They came and their drug and alcohol needs were higher than what we could help them with. We're currently seeing high rates of employment. If you look at the handout of our active clients, 66% of them are employed, and I would say the large majority of them are full-time employed. If not, they are very close to full-time employment. We have 18% that are unemployed. Those are usually the folks that have just joined our program. We don't progress you. The program does not allow you to progress to the next phases of the program until you have a job, unless you are on disability, which makes up 7% of our clientele. 9% are those folks that are currently in a higher level of care, so they're not employed, obviously, because they're taking care of those needs first. The clients that are active in the program, that are referred to treatment, continue to participate, complete successfully, or have been referred to and are in a higher level of care. Our clientele range throughout each of the phases of the program, which is nice because we have, as you can see, the middle graph there, 25% are on the final phase of the program, so they're reporting 1 day a week. 11% are on phase 3, they report 3 days a week. 28% are reporting 5 days a week, and 36% with the influx of referrals. Recently, we have a lot of phase 1 clients, which is great. That means we have more people to move through the program, and we'll get to the referral process eventually, but we are seeing an upswing in that area. We recently celebrated our first graduation, as we said, with 4 of our clients, and the exciting news is that before the end of August, we should see 9 more successfully complete. We have 9 folks, as you can see, on that handout there that are on phase 4, so they're looking to graduate soon. Now, of course, that will depend upon their continued participation and not stepping out of line and so forth. They've already planned for that process with their case coordinators, what's life going to look like after the DRC, all those good things. Moving on to more of the daily happenings, kind of just the day in and day out of the program, we're seeing some positive feedback and growth through the curriculum that the clients are learning while in the program. At first, we get a lot of pushback from a client. I don't need this is stupid, that sort of thing. And very quickly, sometimes it's not even a process. It's one day you're talking to an individual, the next day they seem to be very different, and you kind of wonder, are they messing with me or not? But in reality, at our graduation, all of the clients said, when I started here, I was this person. When I was done, I was this person. And I don't know where the change took place, somewhere in there, but we as a staff see the change take place every day, which is fantastic. And it's through the anger management classes, the drug and alcohol classes, the life skills classes, just the structure of the program itself. Clients, and that's the next point there, clients are learning to manage time due to the structure and procedure of the program. Being somewhere at 8:45 in the morning every day seems to be probably the biggest hurdle at first. A lot of them have to walk there, ride the bike, take the bus. So just learning structure has been one of the biggest successes for our clients. And those that struggle with this are addressed individually. If we have a client who has transportation issues, we help them figure that out. If we have a client who has child care issues and they need to come a little later because that 8:45 mark just doesn't match up with school, well then we we'll definitely work with him on that. So it's a case-by-case basis. We do have a policy that if you continue to show up late, it can affect your participation in the program. But most have reacted well to that. When they're with us for a while, they figure it out. With the exception of a few, the clients seem to take ownership of their experience in the program and often work well together. The clients in general get along with each other, which is a blessing, and I'll knock on wood real quick, because that can be very problematic when you have a few clients that don't necessarily see eye to eye. We've had those problems, and the staff has done a great job of seeing that, sensing that, and either pulling them together in a room and talking about it, or if it's, we have to remember these folks know each other from the street and from jail, and if necessary, we have done it where a client will report in the evening and that client will report in the morning, because maybe there's just too much for us to try to sort out, and that's just the best way to keep everyone safe. So we haven't had any sort of outbursts up until this point, which is fantastic. I know that was a concern for a lot of people. What's the potential for violence, the potential for conflict, and we haven't seen that yet, and I'll knock on wood again. Clients are seeing the teamwork dynamic between the DRC staff and the probation department, and quite frankly, it freaks them out at first because they see probation as the hammer and the law, and they come to us and we are much different. We're different in our approach because of who we are, but then they see the probation officers come in and they're like, what are they doing here? And then they see us talking to them, and if they're a new client, they're like, I'm telling them my business, only what they need to know, but we also let the client know that we are a team, and that over time, it has only gotten stronger, that teamwork aspect between probation and DRC staff. Community feedback, no news is good news, I guess, but no negative interactions with local community members to this point. We have had no incidents where a business owner has had to speak with us. Quite the contrary, we've had a couple of business owners say that they hear that things are going well and they're happy. Now, those were business owners that were probably supportive of us to begin with, but still at least we're getting positive feedback on those occasions. Communication with employers has been consistent. I haven't had an employer that hasn't worked with us yet, which is great. If I have to call and confirm that a client is indeed working there from such and such hour, they have been cooperative and they know who we are at this point, and we're trying to continue to strengthen that with local business owners. Moving on to the next page, barriers. We've had some barriers throughout the process. I'm glad to say that more successes than barriers, and these barriers are existent. Referrals for a long time was our greatest barrier, and it probably could be chalked up to a lot of things, being a new program, getting the word out. Communication was lacking at times, but we're happy to say that is all within recent weeks and months. We're seeing some positive outcomes there. Our main flow of referrals have come from the sentencing judges, as well as through the probation department. If a client violates their probation rules, they've been given the option to go to DRC rather than go back to jail. A lot of times that is the option that they take, and we're happy with that. So those have been our two main referral sources. Some existing barriers to referrals have recently been discussed, and we are anticipating improvements. We had meetings with the DA's office and Public Defender's office, and everyone in the room was on board, and we have some plans to increase the communication between those departments and ourselves, and we're happy to say that in upcoming weeks we anticipate a stronger flow from those departments due to more availability to complete the assessment that the client needs to get into our program. So after those discussions, I'm feeling more optimistic, and actually have had an upswing of referrals in recent weeks. I think we were at 30 a month ago, so we've had 10 within the last. So that's a good sign, and I hope that it continues. And through our communication, I think that it will. Domestics cases have been a struggle, and by struggle I mean we haven't had any. There have been some logistical issues And there have been, the main thing is, in order to have a client complete the LSIR, which is the assessment tool to determine their risk and needs, we have to have a criminal background check. And we've gotten pushback from JNet, is that?
JNet.
That we can't run a criminal background check for a civil case, domestics or civil cases. So we've met with domestics on a couple of occasions to discuss possible workarounds with this, and what we have landed on is domestics looking at the list of folks they have coming up for sentencing and comparing that to the master probation list and seeing who's already on probation, because in that case, we have the LSI.
Yeah.
So.
I didn't mean it, I was gonna try
Sure.
to wait till you're in, but this, well, I'm thinking of it, if they give you their permission, would that work?
This is something that we have asked. and
We've asked, yeah.
We've been told, I'm pretty sure, pretty straightforward no on that. On
Even if
the,
the,
Sally was the one handling
if
that.
the client says, hey, you know what, I think I can be helped by this program, I'll give you my permission to do it back.
Well, or we can't do it that way. But one thing that we do at PCS, we have similar, very strict rules with drug and alcohol charts, where we can't pass on drug and alcohol information. But if the client wants that information passed on, we can hand it to the client, and the client can go do what they want to do. So my question was, can't you give them their criminal record so that they can walk over and say, please do an LSIR so I can get into this program? That question hasn't been answered.
Because we were counting on domestics for a
I
good chunk.
know.
that
Yeah.
was
Yes, we were.
I
Yeah.
know.
Good feeder part of it, yeah, okay.
Right, and the other option you had thought of, you just said a bit ago, was,
The LSIR allows you to admit certain questions.
right, just give them to them, yeah.
So can we do the LSIR and admit the ones that require the full background check? And that's questionable as well, but the nice thing about the way we have the program structured at present is we use the LSIR, but we also use a number of other assessment tools in addition to the LSIR, so that if there are pieces missing from the LSIR, that because we base their program structure, so we base what classes they go to and where they attend, because we don't want people doing things that they don't need to do. We base that upon the needs identified in the LSIR, but we do so many other additional tools, especially based on our relationship with Kutztown. We do several tools that they've sent us, that they've identified, that don't require criminal background checks. So I think that we have some flexibility to kind of supplement as needed. The bigger fear about not having the background check is the concern that we would let somebody into the program that would otherwise have a disqualifying offense that they are not forthcoming about. So we don't permit those with a violent offense history. And so that's our barrier.
So those
yeah, that's where it's-
domestic referrals, who would they come from?
Judge Charles, I think primarily.
Okay, yeah, because he does the family, yeah, okay.
and another option that I ran by Sally, and this was the last time we met in person, so I'm awaiting the answer, would be if we conduct the LSIR with the individual, and then, or was that a different issue? Being able to run that background check later, that was a different issue.
Well, we would conduct it with the items omitted.
Right,
And then,
I was thinking of,
once they're in the program, that
Right.
would give them a little bit more time to get there.
right,
So the resistance didn't necessarily come from the judge?
No,
Not
he
at all.
really wanted, he
Yeah.
wanted to rule it out like the next day. Like, he was ready to
Yeah, that's what I was
rock.
gonna say, is
No,
there
it
some way
was
that
not.
he could circumvent that? No.
The resistance came from JNet, and I guess we are not permitted to have access to it because we're not a criminal justice we're not, so probation has to run the background checks, and probation isn't allowed to just hand us the background checks because they would then lose their access to JNet.
right.
Is that how I understand it? Though I'm sure Sally could explain that better.
Yeah, it's very tight.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the question though still that hasn't been answered
Is whether they
is,
could give
yeah, can they say,
Yeah.
I don't want to go to jail, I want to go to this program.
Right.
Can I have my criminal record check and then run it over to probation or to us to be able to do the LSIR?
And there is some evidence to suggest that there is some overlap between those who are dealing with domestic cases and those who are
Correct.
presently on probation. So that will at least allow us to get that population.
Is that being done now, that overlap?
Not yet.
No, okay.
I'd like to ask a question on the numbers, if you don't mind. What is our minimum number so that we're not going in a hole? In other words, have we reached the threshold where we're not paying for people that aren't in the program?
40.
It is 40.
Yes.
The number is 40?
Yes.
Okay, and your maximum again is 120 or?
150 from our
150 for
perspective.
From our
us.
perspective,
Yeah,
it's
But
150.
probation, that would require another probation officer. So Sally said that 2 probation officers, she feels comfortable with a census of 100. We could do more than that, but that would require more of a probation, more probation officers.
But we interrupted you, so.
Sure.
Jamie, Jamie.
Hey,
Oh,
no
they're still,
worries.
they're still going, I'll wait, no, I'm gonna wait.
Oh, okay.
Are you sure?
Yeah, yeah.
So, as I said before, we're seeing an increase in our referral flow, and we're hoping that that keeps pushing through. And if we've been more proactive in recent weeks and months in reaching out and pushing the issue. We've been doing that for a while, but I think even more so in the last couple of months.
You know, especially when you see lives changed, you sit there and you go, what's better than 40 lives changed? Well, 150 lives changed
Yeah.
would be better than 4, or 100 would be better than 40 lives changed. So it starts to get reinforcing as you start to see people doing things. And as when we first talked, remember we talked about the dominoes, and so it's not just those 40 people, it's their spouses, their partners, their children, all the ways they interact with the culture that hopefully makes Lebanon County a safer place.
Well, you know, after your ceremony the other day, I had people that I know didn't know me or, prior to that day, and actually coming up and thanking me for whatever role I had in making this program available. And I think folks in their situation, if they're openly doing that, to me, that's very meaningful, because they probably never have done anything like that before in their life, really, to go out to a complete stranger and say, thank you for helping me, whatever role you played, so.
And that's the awesome thing, is that they haven't had many people helping them in the past.
Right.
So I think when they feel that the genuineness from us as we help them day by day, and they realize this isn't just a punishment, it's an opportunity, that's totally foreign to a lot of our clients. That's awesome to hear.
And when they say that to you, they're saying, they're almost taking on a certain responsibility to live up to the gift that you gave them, and hopefully that leads to them contributing to the culture in other ways themselves.
Very good.
Yeah, I think all 4 of them, somewhere in their little speech said, these guys really care about us. And I just went, because I know our team does, but they all recognized it.
Yeah. It's hard to miss, if they can at least, and I always tell them this, what we ask from you is to show up. Show up on time, be respectful, and do your best to participate. I always say take one nugget every day, one nugget of gold that's going to help you. I don't care what it is. Even if you see someone acting up and you say, I'm not going to do that, that's good enough. And I'm telling them this in my mind, I'm thinking, and if you can do that, you'll make it, you'll get something from this, just be here. And I think that's what we saw with the grad. It's hard to miss if you're there, if you put yourself in that place. Overall, looking back, and this caused pause for thought for me, and to look at where we've been and where we come from, the clients we've seen, and the ones that maybe haven't been successful with us, and to think and to go back and look name by name and what happened there. To this point, we've had 78 participants walk through our doors. Currently, we have 40 with us. A handful of these clients were quickly discharged when disqualifying factors were discovered. I think I counted around a half dozen of folks that literally were there for 24, 48, 72 hours because they came in, something was missed in the referral process, And usually when discussing with Audrey or someone, or Dave, our probation officer, we didn't see that they had this disqualifying offense in 2005. We can't keep someone with multiple aggravated assaults, so they were very quick cases. They were there for a cup of coffee, essentially. Another handful of clients quickly committed new charges that made them ineligible. A very risky moment for this population is when they are released. Unfortunately, that's when they are most prone to reoffend, very quickly after they leave a short sentence. And this program, as much as it does to help clients reintegrate into society, it gives them, into the community, it gives them more freedom. And oftentimes you have that risky moment, or that time where they can mess up, they do mess up. And depending on the charge, or depending on which violation it is on their probation, it may disqualify them from being re-entered back into the program. For instance, we had a client get out of jail, come to our program, and a couple weekends later, she decided to go out and drink, and then she got a simple assault charge involved in that situation. And at that point, our hands were tied. We can't do a whole lot for you. She disqualified herself, unfortunately. And as you know, not everyone that walks through the door is going to be successful, but it's
Right.
important to look back and see how were they not successful. The large majority of clients that have been discharged unsuccessfully were the result of ongoing drug and alcohol issues. That's one of our number one factors with our clients. Many of them have drug charges. I would say, off the top of my head, 4 or 5 haven't out of those 78. So it's part of what we do, and that's why a lot of our classes are geared towards that. And coming from a background of working in rehab, sometimes people aren't ready, and as much as you can help and pour into them, and some of the bullets here, each of the clients that left because of drug and alcohol issues were referred to proper services, were attending those services, and when they started using again, those things went out the window. Some had been referred to a higher level of care, rehab, and were told, complete the rehabilitation process and you can come back, and they did not. So at that point, they went back out and kept using. There's not much we can do there at this point. If later down the road we might see the same individual and we would consider taking them back, given that their immediate drug and alcohol issues are taken care of. A small portion of the clients made the decision that they would rather serve the alternative sentence. I would say 5, when I was looking back, about 5 clients became so frustrated with the process of change that they, and I have to respect a client when they do this, when they say, I am not ready for this, I can't handle this, and you can encourage and you can tell them this is an opportunity until you're blue in the face and they say, I'm not ready for this, I don't want this, please, I want to go back to jail. And there's that, to me, I can't comprehend, and I know that it's very real for some clients when they make that decision that I'm not ready for this change in my life. And the majority of them said, I know I need this, but I can't do it. I'm done. And it's usually after, those aren't clients that were there for a week or 2 or 3. They're clients that were there for 2 or 3 months, and they really found within themselves that they could not make the changes. And as much as we can encourage them, as much as we say, just come back tomorrow, I'm not coming back tomorrow. I want to go to jail. Yeah,
That sort of ties in with, when you look at the statistics on the prison population, say 525 per day, probably 240 of them will be parole or probation violations. I mean, that's almost half our, that for whatever reason, they.
Can't do it on the street.
They just keep prolonging the prison.
They turn a 6-month sentence into a 5-year,
That's
10-year
their
ordeal.
that's their family,
Yeah.
and they need that structure to feel safe in that system.
I'm glad to say that it was a small portion of our clients, but and at the same time, looking back and seeing how much of it is drug and alcohol involved, we are very aware and take every step we can to make sure they're in the proper level of care.
I know that, I believe I heard you say that you have a smaller percentage of women going through the program. But if you looked at the groups individually, men and women, is there a higher percentage in one than the other that can get through the program successfully?
I actually don't know that there are a huge disparity between male and female clients. I would say there are more males if I did the count. If I'm just
Overall, statistically speaking, there's more men involved in the criminal justice.
right,
system.
I'm just thinking in our current population, you know, we've had a lot of, the majority of our recent referrals have been female, but I think considering who has been successful, I don't know that I can answer that with 100% certainty, who has been more successful in completing. I know that in our graduation, 2 were male and 2 were female. And I know those that are looking at coming up graduations, I would say it's right around, if out of those 9, it's probably pretty split. 4 on one way, 5 on the other, if I can think of the faces that are coming through. I'd say it's pretty even, honestly, at this point.
The 40, and you say that you can handle up to 150 or whatever. That was a question I had. Having 40, can you get a feel for your capacity? You sort of answered that, but I mean, we're very surprised is that 40, this is a lot more cumbersome or needs more, space than we thought originally, or?
I think that at this point, the only thing I would look at and say we would need more of, if we were at 100 clients, would be staff. Space-wise, as long as we keep this pretty well spread out,
Phases.
with the phases, when you have 100 clients and 30 of them are coming 1 day a week, you might get packed at times, but it's not going to be nearly as crowded. And to be honest, we are only using 1 group room at a time, even with 40 clients, because it's pretty well split between morning and evening. Pretty well split.
And we've got 3 group rooms.
We have 3
Okay.
nicely sized group rooms, as you've seen. But I would say space-wise, we would be just fine.
I go by there often, more than a couple times a day, and I think there's only one time that I ever saw anybody out there smoking. So you're doing a very good job, and that was, the delay in this whole thing came on the heels of the neighbors, revving up the rhetoric about that
Yeah.
issue of just loitering, and it's really, you guys are doing a very good job of
Thank
keeping
you.
that, a lid on that part of it, and I think that's probably why your neighbors are not at our doorstep or elsewhere,
I think also the local restaurants have done quite well with
Well,
our
that's good.
clients.
Which is what we thought would,
We're getting business.
Do you see a need for, because last time I was,
Easier for everybody.
Because it seemed early on.
Fingers crossed.
When I say early on, I mean even prior to opening.
Yes.
That it was going to be possible for an MDJ to go from, the initial contact with the defendant to say, I'm not going to incarcerate you, you report tomorrow, for example. Maybe I'm exaggerating that, or
That's how it goes.
But that was part of how it was sold
Yeah.
to us.
Yeah.
So, but I only recently became aware of this LSIR change, and I'm not even sure I completely understand the differences, but I was led to believe that was one of the factors keeping someone from saying, you've been arrested, you've been charged, you're before an MDJ, tomorrow go to the Day Reporting Center. Maybe an oversimplification, but that's what I think there was a belief that could happen.
Yeah.
But logistically, that couldn't yet.
We still think that it's feasible,
Okay.
especially under the
Okay.
new system, and I think it has always been feasible.
Okay.
Because the gal that is employed by the probation department, now I know that position has been unfilled for a while, so I don't know if that is one of the barriers, but she was located in central booking
Okay.
for a little bit, and she was doing drug and alcohol evaluations prior to even,
Oh, so within hours.
yeah, she was, Julie Wood was her name, now
So
she
She was doing LSIRs too?
I'm not entirely sure, but she was doing full evaluations prior to them even going in front of the MDJ.
Okay.
Now, I know Julie left her position a while ago.
A while ago.
And I'm not sure that that position has since been refilled. So that might be the problem.
And I'm not trying to explain away why there aren't any referrals, I'm just
No.
pointing out something I've heard recently that
Sure.
sounds like maybe logistically that was,
And if the MDJs have resistance, I know that Judge Tilwalk had been having some judges' meetings with the MDJs and with the criminal court judges as well. And I know you went to the one with the criminal court judges. So far, nobody has vocalized a resistance. And any barrier, the specific barrier of not knowing about eligibility prior to making that recommendation, which was one of the concerns coming out of the public defender's office, only came to us 3 weeks ago. And then we had a meeting pretty soon after that and think we have a solution for it now. So hopefully that won't be a barrier moving forward. We're optimistic that that's been resolved.
I don't know whose choice it would be, but, you know, while this position is vacant, maybe we have a clinician who could be, you know, contracted with us. Probation would have to work with us
Would
to
have to be
fill that,
probation.
because if it's, you know.
Yeah, we could
We
rent
can do
rent
those
somebody over
assessments.
there,
We
we
don't
could
have
do
to
those assessments.
I mentioned that to Sally previously.
Oh, did you? Okay, okay.
Yeah, it
As
is
long as she
currently
does.
being contracted to Martha Thompson.
Oh, okay.
But it's not,
That's in the prison. That's not a central booking, right?
yes, yes. So Martha's going, I'm not quite sure. I'm not,
Okay.
I shouldn't
All
speak
right. So you,
where I
that's
don't
all right.
know.
You
But
covered
I
it.
did
We just
offer to
didn't know
Sally.
that.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
Thank you. Good.
I still have a few people.
Yeah,
With my diabetes, and I also don't want to deal with my diabetes, okay? Because I want to eat what I want to eat. And so that struggle of both changing and resisting, and some of the times, it actually goes better when you see them start to fight you a little bit, because it means they're not blowing you off. It means the crossroads of life is over time becoming more clear to them. And so then you start to see the struggle. And I know, like, when you're bringing in a big fish, if there's a big fight, it's a big fish, you know? And so some of that resistance, we're actually concerned when we don't see it. Because it really is, I pressed my button, I'm not gonna let you affect you, I'm not gonna be here, I'm gonna be your body but not mine. So in all PCS clientele, that's what we therapists do. We're trained to look for resistances, and you almost want to see a little bit of it, because it means they're starting to see the implications that if I'm going to eat correctly for my diabetes, there are long-term implications about Dairy Queen, you know, and I don't like that. So I'm going to have my temper tantrum and fight it a little bit before I then get there. So that's just a human phenomenon all therapists deal with. The DRC, it'll be a little louder and a little more brash, but, you know, I would much rather have that at certain times than a person that's more depressed, more apathetic, and tries to just ride you out. And so then we will literally do things to try to agitate them in order to get the resistance, because the resistance is a better step to get them from resistance to cure than apathy. Apathy is the best resistance that kills us. So agitating them when they go, you are not going to convince me, I smile inside, no matter what language they may call me, you blankety blank blank blank. I'm actually smiling inside, because now I know they've showed up.
And I always tell them, you know, I love stubbornness, because if you can be stubborn about this, then you can be stubborn about something else.
That's right.
So if you're stubborn about staying in your negative behaviors, if you find a better way of life, you'll be stubborn about keeping that. Most recent, we have a guy who came, he just got out of state prison, and still had some penance to pay to the county, and now he's with us instead of going to jail. They didn't want to derail him, so he hates us. He hates it. He hates walking through the door. He told me, I walk in here, I immediately feel angry and negative, and I just kept saying, you'll be all right, you can do it, and it just ticks him off, you know. And he said, why do you keep saying I'll be all right? I said, because if I didn't think you would be all right, I wouldn't say it. You're stubborn, you're angry, you'll be okay. Just keep coming. It'll get better. And he does. He keeps coming because he doesn't want to go to jail, and he'll be
You
all right.
start to
But
see
that
these
stubbornness is a
little
good thing.
movements, this little movement where you go, you normally tells me off in the first second. It actually took them a minute to get there this time. And literally, that's how we therapists think.
Yeah.
And you start to shave it, and then eventually, that is one of your best people out there down the road. They stick with what the change is. They're more likely to, and they're more likely to tell other people, hey, this changed my life, go to the DRC.
That the one female graduate, Jocelyn, last week, she was so angry when she started. She would not talk to anyone. If you try to talk to her, she'd say, "Don't talk to me," literally. I don't want to be here. This is ridiculous. I'm getting, the system is doing this and that. And if you remember any of what she said at that graduation, I owe my life to this place. I completely changed everything. My outlook on life has completely changed. I mean, but I love to see someone who's that fiery.
I just had two quick things. One,
Sure.
average age.
Average age. Let me see.
Population. Or don't
I
have
would
enough to
say
go by.
mid to late 20s
Oh, okay.
on average.
When you mentioned
We
that
have a-
50-year-old, I was wondering if
Well,
it's.
you had a few older ones
Yep.
there, though.
It actually might be closer to 30, with some outliers. We have a couple that are in their early 60s.
Of course, some of those folks tend to look older than they are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah,
Life's
big
been
time.
rough.
Yeah.
Yes, life has been rough, and there are some that I think, I see their chart and I go, what? I thought they were much older than that. One is my age, and I saw her age and I was like, oh my goodness, but neither here nor there. But I would say on average, late 20s, at most 30, because while you have some on that end of the spectrum, we also have some, immaturity, 18,
Oh, sure,
19.
that is
It's pretty
right.
rough.
Well, it's really good if we can change someone yet while they're
Younger,
young.
absolutely.
I'll tell you, that's the hardest population, in my opinion.
The youngest?
That 22, 21, 22,
The
20.
invincibility factor.
They
is-
still think they're invincible. They haven't had too many consequences yet. Usually at that point in time, they haven't
They're living with,
lost family. They have
Someone.
parents that are still maybe a little bit more involved, willing to enable a little bit. It's a hard population.
Yeah.
It's great when it sticks,
they're pliable, but then
Ah.
it's, if they really
but they're
feel-
pliable.
Their frontal lobe is not developed until 25. So what's not developed,
shows.
you can easily figure out.
Well, thank you. Pleasure, working with you folks. And someone mentioned the reentry, that time when they get out. And we are actually working, and we appreciate you giving us the space for those meetings. But we are working to strengthen